You just hear this boom, 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 and it was almost like lightning was in the theater. Even 10 years later, I remember what that felt like when I got that phone call. Just grateful to be alive.
But 4 years before the longest day of Marcus Weaver's life, he was just trying to survive 2008.
I just graduated radiology school, top of my class. After I graduated, I went through this period where because I had such a difficult childhood and a father who was abusive and grew up in that environment, I was what they call a self-sabotager. I would find success, but then to find a way to ruin it. It landed me up in a high-speed car chase with police. I was looking at about 40 years jail time. And so when I saw the judge, I'll never forget, I told him all the things I was gonna do. I was gonna, start a family, write a book, start a nonprofit to help folks, just do some great things in my community if he gave me a chance. And sure enough, the judge stopped me and said, sure, I'm gonna give you a chance.
Marcus was released from prison 3 weeks later and spent the next 4 years making that judge proud.
2012 was, it was a year of real transition in my life. I remember I was working at Bud's Warehouse, transitional job training program, and really was doing really well there, helping guys transition out of jail or rehab. I got a phone call about a person who really wanted help starting a nonprofit for teens. And so that girl was Rebecca Wingo, and so we became fast friends during that summer.
On July 19th, 2012, Marcus Weaver was hanging out with Rebecca.
It was one of the hottest summers on record that year, and I had got up and went swimming actually with Rebecca because we both had the day off. I was looking forward to going to the Batman movie with her because she hadn't seen any of the Batman movies. I went by the theater and grabbed the tickets that day because I knew I would want to go see it as soon as I could, which was the 12 o'clock showing on July 20th. Told Rebecca I would meet her there. The theater was just, it was crowded. I walked into the theater, it was Theater 9, and I got a seat in the 5th row. Got my seat, and I remember I put my jacket there, my Bud's Warehouse jacket down, and it saved me a seat. So I went back out and waited for her, and then sure enough, she showed up. We went inside the movie theater, sat down, was eating popcorn, and then the movie started. So I would say about 10 minutes into the movie, you could see someone walking through the door and a smoke bomb just goes off. I looked over to Rebecca and I said, I think somebody's ruined the movies. They're lighting a smoke bomb. Then all of a sudden, this is the thing that I will never forget as long as I live. You just hear this boom, boom, boom. And it was almost like lightning was in the theater. The movie's still going on, there's smoke going on, and all of a sudden you see this person just firing in this mask. And I instinctively just got down, and I got Rebecca down as well. I kept hearing the screams and it hitting the bullets hitting the front of the seat. The noise was just so much. And all of a sudden, this voice in the middle of nowhere says, he's gonna stop shooting. About 5 seconds later, he just stopped. And I immediately, instinctively got up. I got Rebecca up, and I tried to go down the row. People were coming down the middle, bombarding through the middle, trying to get out. And then all of a sudden, you could hear the gunshots again. And so I fell down through the row, ended up getting on the left side of the theater to where I was able to crawl out. Rebecca fell back down into the chair, and that was the last time I saw her.
Outside the theater, Weaver says the scene was heartbreakingly chaotic.
At that time, out in front of that theater, they were dragging people out, kids out that were just bloodied, sea of ambulances, first responders, and then this whole time, the gunman was on the other side of the theater being arrested. And then a little girl comes up to me and says, "Your arm's bleeding." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And sure enough, my arm was bleeding through this shirt, and it just gushed all over. So apparently I was hit somewhere. So they rushed me to a hospital in an ambulance and rushed me to the hospital. I didn't want to leave. They had to pretty much throw me in there because my friend was still in the theater. I remember getting to that hospital and everybody's looking at the TV, and it still hadn't dawned on me yet. like the depth of what had happened to me in that moment.
Weaver says his mind was still on his friend, Rebecca.
As the day wore on, no one could find her, and I got a call from a guy named Anderson Cooper. Want to know, did I want to interview and see if we could help find my friend Rebecca. I don't know at the time if it was the best decision. Reliving it in front of a national audience, it was almost like I invited these strangers into my home. After those interviews, I got home and I get a phone call from her brother saying that she was one of the 10 people still in the theater that just didn't make it out. It was even 10 years later, I remember what that felt like when I got that phone call. The whole time we were interviewing, she was in that theater. Rebecca's funeral, it was tough, and I hadn't cried until after I got up there and spoke, and it was the first time I had cried. My mom, I would never forget, she put her hand on my back, and I just wept because it was a lot to deal with. The first 3 years was just so intense with the media. You know, I had gotten married. I was traveling around the country. I had wrote a book. Her name was Rebecca. We had a lot in common. She wanted to help people too. I think it was us trying to help others as a way to help ourselves heal. And then Maggie came. She became this symbol of the new life I was looking for, redemption. The top up there, it represents the 12 people who passed away in the theater.
We're at the memorial. My dad told me that it's for people that died and that lived.
You know, I brought Maggie to the opening, and you know, it's a lovely space. When things aren't going well in my life, and when things are, you know, topsy-turvy in this world, I can come here and find some solace and hang out with Rebecca and some of the other folks who were here, who were with me 10 years ago in that theater. The best thing about the group that I'm in, this fraternity or sorority, wherever you want to call it, of victims, is that, you know, we're survivors, you know, and we're just going to keep moving forward. We all went through the trial, and I remember as we got closer, I started really having problems with, you know, my emotions. I was able to receive some help by volunteering to be on a board for victims who were in other shootings. And so it was a group of about 6 of us. One woman was from the, you know, the South Carolina shooting, and she came. And another woman was from a shooting that happened in Portland at a school a long time ago. A Columbine victim came. The guy who was in the Waffle shooting, he was my roommate. And so we spent a week together, and I swear, out of all the treatment I've had, including like the early on stuff I was doing MACD and all those things, I think it was the best because it came from people who also had lived experience, who knew what it felt like to not sleep, to have insomnia, to, you know, try to find answers to things that, you know, really been bothering you. I got to 8 years and still was hearing the noise from the theater. I don't hear the sounds, I don't hear the screams anymore. And I think it's made me better from just having that group around me.
These days, Weaver is once again working in social work.
I work here at the Community Outreach Service Center, and we operate on 5 pillars. We're people working together to build a better community. Pastor Bob and Miss Eddie started the Outreach Center in 1988. During that time, it was just a period in this neighborhood of 5 Points where people were going through the crack epidemic. They've been mentors to me since I got out of trouble. We help people with basic needs. With employment, we have the People's Pickles, which is a social entrepreneur program where we're able to employ folks. We also do housing. We have a transitional housing program.
And after a divorce, Weaver found love again.
When I met Ashley this past year, she was really the answer to prayer. I found love. I found my own place, you know, with somebody who understands me and understands all those things I've been through, you know, who loves my daughter.
I just admired his bravery and that he would put himself out there to make the world a better place. I just feel really blessed and lucky to be part of his story.
But Weaver says he would have to navigate through tragic loss again.
Over this past year, I had a son who, you know, my middle son has historically not been doing well. He started having some problems during the pandemic with his mental health, and you know, we tried to get him help, and eventually he lost his life this 2 months ago. And so it's just been, it's been one of those things where, I think tragedy is always going to be around us. It's just how you handle it.
10 years after the shooting that took 12 lives, Weaver says survivors and their family members are still hurting.
Some of us aren't in a good place, some of us don't have the great stories, and those are the ones that, I pray for every day, the ones I don't see. I hurt just like everybody else does, and I still do feel the pain of the theater at different times. I'm just grateful to be alive.
Reporting for Denver 7 in Aurora, I'm Micah Smith with photojournalist Scott Blessing.